Okay, so cultivated octopus.
Yeah,
Gotta admit, when we saw that in your research notes, we knew this deep dive was going to be interesting.
definitely eye-catching.
Cell4Food. They're really pushing the boundaries with this.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's not just about, creating some cool new food. It's really about addressing some really big challenges facing our global food system,
Mm.
especially when it comes to seafood.
So let's break it down. What's the core problem here? What's got everyone searching for new solutions?
Well, think about this. By 2050, there are going to be almost 10 billion people on the planet.
Oh, wow.
That means we need to produce way more food, like 50% more than we did back in 2012, just to feed everyone.
And I'm guessing that doesn't even factor in the growing demand for things like biofuels, right?
Exactly. And those rely on agriculture, too. It's a lot of pressure on the system.
Yeah, more mouths to feed, but the same planet to feed them from.
Right.
And our oceans are already feeling the
You
strain.
got it. Overfishing, pollution, climate change,
Mhm.
it's a perfect storm.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
The UN estimates that almost a third of all the food we produce globally, that's a mind-blowing 930 million tons, gets wasted every year.
That's just crazy.
And on top of that, agriculture, including livestock, contributes a significant chunk of global greenhouse gas emissions, something like 22%.
Wow, that's alarming.
I
So is that where Cell4Food comes in? They're kind of stepping in with the solution by changing how we get seafood on our plates.
Exactly. Cell4Food is riding that wave of what we call cellular agriculture.
Yeah,
Basically, they're growing animal cells in a controlled way.
like in a lab.
Yeah. To make meat and seafood without actually raising and harvesting animals.
So no more octopus farms?
Potentially not.
Yeah,
And that's
okay.
good because traditional aquaculture has its own issues. Pollution, habitat destruction, you name it.
Okay, so less environmental impact, I get that. But I gotta ask, how do you even start cultivating an octopus in a lab?
It's a really neat process. It all begins with just a tiny sample of cells from a living octopus. And Cell4Food is very, very clear about ethical sourcing for those cells, which is great.
Good to know. So they've got these octopus cells, now what?
Then it's all about creating the perfect environment, kind of like a spa treatment for these cells.
A spa treatment.
They're placed in a special nutrient-rich solution, perfectly mimicking their natural habitat in the ocean.
So they're living the high life.
Exactly. It's all about keeping them happy and healthy.
But how do those cells, those pampered cells, actually become octopus meat?
Well, it's not magic, but it's close. Cell4Food has figured out how to guide the growth of these cells.
Okay.
So they grow into specific shapes and textures, like imagine perfectly formed octopus legs. They're even starting to use things like 3D printing to really nail that real octopus texture and taste.
3D printed octopus.
Yeah, isn't that something?
That's wild.
Cutting edge stuff.
Okay, that is seriously cool. But let's be real for a sec. Can they actually make enough of this stuff to feed everyone? Or is this just going to be like a novelty for the super rich?
That's the million-dollar question. It's a huge undertaking. Scaling up production is a major challenge,
And I bet it's not cheap.
right? Cost is definitely a hurdle right now. I mean, we're talking about a product that's still in its early stages. It's being developed in labs, not mass-produced for grocery stores.
Yeah.
But Cell4Food gets it. They know that for this to be a real game changer, it has to be scalable and affordable. So they're putting a lot of energy into research and development, trying to make the whole process more cost-effective.
So it's like the early days of computers, right? Those first computers were enormous and crazy expensive, but look at them now.
Exactly. And this tech could follow a similar path. It's about those breakthroughs that make it accessible to everyone.
Okay, so cross is one thing, but what about the ick factor? Like, are people really going to be okay with eating something grown in a lab?
That's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Consumer perception is a big deal, and Cell4Food knows that. They're really focusing on educating the public, helping people understand how cultivated octopus is made and why it matters. This could be octopus that's completely free of all the stuff that ends up in traditional seafood pollutants, mercury, microplastics.
That's a good point.
That's a powerful message. It really is. And they're not just, throwing it out there and hoping for the best. Cell4Food is getting strategic too. They're planning to roll out some hybrid products.
Yeah.
So think cultivated octopus, but combined with plant-based ingredients.
How interesting. So kind of easing people into it.
Exactly. Like a stepping stone. Give people a taste of what's possible without, a radical change to what they're used to.
I like it. Smart move. But let's say they nail the science, right? And they get people excited about eating lab-grown octopus. There's still this big question of, is this even legal? Like, are there rules about this kind of food tech?
You're hitting on a really important point. The regulations, They're still catching up, to be honest. Right now, only a few countries have actually set clear guidelines for approving and selling cultivated meat and seafood.
Like, who's leading the charge on this?
Singapore and the U.S. are kind of the front runners right now, so they're
Yeah.
figuring it out as they go.
Okay. So what does that mean for Cell4Food right now? Are they just, operating in a gray area, hoping for the best?
Not quite. They're being very proactive, actually. They're working directly with regulatory agencies all over the place, making sure their process is transparent, that it meets all the safety standards, which is smart because it builds trust.
Makes sense. So it sounds like Cell4Food is really thinking about everything, the science, the consumer, even the legal stuff. But let's zoom out for a second. Let's say this cultivated seafood thing, it really takes off. What does that even look like? What does that mean for the future of, well, food in general?
It's exciting to think about, right? Imagine a world where you could eat all the seafood you wanted without worrying about overfishing or, the environment. That's a pretty powerful idea.
Okay, now you're talking. Sign me up for that future. But this isn't just about octopus, is it? This technology, it could be applied to, well, anything, really.
Oh, absolutely. Cell4Food might be focusing on octopus now, but the bigger picture, this is about changing how we produce protein, finding ways to feed a growing planet without, destroying it in the process.
It's almost hard to wrap your head around all the possibilities, but let's be real, this is a long game, right? It's not like we'll be seeing this stuff everywhere overnight. So what needs to happen for it to really become mainstream?
You're right. It takes time, continued research for sure. Companies like Cell4Food, they've got to keep pushing the envelope, finding ways to make more, bring costs down. It's a huge challenge.
And they can't do it alone, right? I mean, it's going to take a global effort.
Exactly. Collaboration is key. We need everyone on board, from the companies to the researchers to governments. It's bigger than all of us, really.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is. It's like this massive puzzle, and we need everyone to find their piece. Okay, last question before we let you go. Hypothetically speaking, if you walked into a grocery store tomorrow and saw cultivated octopus on the shelf, would you buy it? Would you try it?
I have to say, I'd be really curious.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's, deeply invested in this world, I'd want to see how it all translates to the plate. Taste it for myself.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little curious myself. It's like the scientist and the foodie in me are battling it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fascinating learning about Cell4Food and what they're doing.
It really has.
But we want to leave you with something to think about, right? So let's imagine, just for a second, that Cell4Food, they achieve everything they set out to do.
Okay.
Cultivated octopus, it's everywhere. It's affordable. It tastes amazing. What does that do? Not just to, how we see seafood, but to, like, our whole relationship with food and the planet. That's something to ponder, right? Thanks for diving into the world of cultivated octopus with us.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep those questions coming, because we'll be back with another deep dive exploring something new that you care about.